In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where civilizations rise and fall like waves against cosmic shores, there exists a universal truth that even the most primitive species understand. When the apex predator strikes, you run. You don't fight back. You don't stand your ground. But humans never got that memo. When Captain Sarah Chen found herself face-to-face with a Vraktar Shadowhunter, a creature so deadly that entire star systems pay tribute just to keep them away, she did something that defied every law of survival written in blood across a million worlds. She caught its weapon mid-strike, looked into eyes that had witnessed the death of civilizations, and asked one simple question that would echo through the halls of galactic history. Is that all you've got? About predators and prey, and about the strange, stubborn species that refused to know when they were beaten. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't the hunter with the sharpest claws or the deadliest venom, it's the prey that decides to hunt back. This is the story of how humanity earned its place not as another conquered species in the galactic archives, but as the apex predator even nightmares fear to dream about. The research station Meridian, 7 hung in the void like a metallic spider, its sensor arrays stretched out to catch whispers from the cosmos. Captain Sarah Chen pressed her palm against the observation deck's viewport, watching distant stars paint silver streaks across the darkness. 3 years of deep space exploration had taught her that the universe was vast, beautiful, and utterly indifferent to human ambition. Captain, we're picking up something unusual on the long-range sensors, called Lieutenant Torres from the bridge. Her voice carried that particular tension that made experienced spacers stop what they were doing and pay attention. Sarah made her way through the station's corridors, past laboratories where xenobiologists studied samples from a dozen different worlds, past engineering bays where the constant hum of life support systems provided a mechanical heartbeat. Meridian 7 was humanity's furthest outpost, a research facility pushed to the very edge of known space. They were explorers, scientists, the curious children of Earth reaching out to touch the face of infinity. The bridge was a modest affair compared to military vessels, but it served their purposes. Banks of monitors displayed stellar cartography, atmospheric readings, and communication arrays. Torres stood at the sensor station, her dark hair pulled back in the regulation ponytail that never quite stayed regulation neat during long shifts. "What do we have?" Sarah asked, settling into the captain's chair that had been salvaged from a decommissioned freight hauler. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV. It's moving fast, Captain. Really fast. And its configuration doesn't match anything in our database." Torres's fingers danced across her console, pulling up a 3-dimensional representation of the approaching object. Hull composition appears to be some kind of biometallic composite. Energy signature is, well, it's not like anything I've seen before. Dr. Marcus Webb looked up from his xenobiology station. At 62, he was the oldest member of their crew, a man who had spent his life studying alien ecosystems and biological structures. Biometallic? That suggests a living ship, or at least something grown rather than constructed. There are theoretical precedents, but we've never encountered anything like that. Sarah studied the sensor readouts. The approaching vessel was sleek, predatory in its design. Something about its configuration reminded her of a hunting cat. All curves and implied violence. How long until it reaches us? 18 minutes, Captain. Any response to our standard greeting protocols? Nothing. I've tried every frequency we know, every first contact protocol in the book. It's not ignoring us exactly, but it's not acknowledging us either. Just coming. The bridge fell into the kind of silence that settles over people when they realize they might be in serious trouble. Meridian 7 was a research station, not a warship. Their defensive capabilities consisted of basic shielding and a few mining charges that could be repurposed as weapons if absolutely necessary. Against a truly hostile force, they would be helpless. Could be a probe, suggested Engineer Kowalski, a pragmatic woman who had spent most of her career keeping impossible machinery running in impossible conditions. Automated, maybe. That would explain the lack of communication. Or it could be piloted by something that doesn't communicate the way we do, Webb countered. we need to consider that we might be dealing with a completely alien form of intelligence. Different sensory modalities, different concepts of communication, different intentions entirely. All right, people. Standard first contact procedures. Shields up, but keep our weapon systems offline. We don't want to appear threatening. Dr. Webb, I want you monitoring for any biological signatures. If this thing is alive, I want to know about it. Torres, keep trying to establish communication. Try mathematical sequences, prime numbers, anything that might indicate intelligence. The next 15 minutes passed with agonizing slowness. The alien vessel approached with the inexorable patience of a hunter stalking prey. As it drew closer, the sensors began to pick up more details. The ship was roughly 60 meters long, its hull covered in what appeared to be scales or plates that shifted and moved with an organic fluidity. Sensor spikes extended from its nose like whiskers, tasting the electromagnetic spectrum for information about its surroundings. Captain, Webb's voice was tight with excitement and fear, I'm reading massive biological activity within that ship, not just life support systems, but actual living tissue integrated into the hull structure. This isn't just a biomechanical construct, this is a living creature adapted for space travel. A space whale? Kowalski asked, though her tone suggested she didn't believe her own words. More like a space shark, Webb replied grimly. The energy readings suggest predatory adaptations. Electromagnetic sensors for tracking prey, what appears to be some kind of organic weapon system integrated into the forward section, and... He paused, double-checking his readings. And neural activity patterns that suggest high intelligence. This isn't just a creature, it's a sentient being. The alien ship slowed as it approached Meridian 7, circling the station like a curious predator examining potential prey. Its movements were fluid, graceful, utterly silent in the vacuum of space. Through the observation ports, the crew could see its hull rippling with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in complex sequences. It's scanning us, Torres reported. Multiple sensor beams, very sophisticated. It's learning about our technology, our energy signatures, probably even our biological composition from the heat patterns. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature control. Are we looking at first contact with an alien intelligence? Or are we about to become someone's lunch? The question was answered a moment later when the alien ship extended what could only be described as tentacles from hidden recesses in its hull. These appendages were tipped with cutting implements that gleamed with their own inner light, obviously designed for breaching hull plating and accessing the soft interiors of prey vessels. Battle stations, Sarah ordered, though she knew it was largely a futile gesture. All hands, prepare for possible hull breach. Emergency protocols are now in effect. The alien ship moved with predatory grace, positioning itself to strike at Meridian 7's most vulnerable points. Its tentacles extended toward the station's life support section, where a single breach would doom everyone aboard. This was clearly a practiced maneuver, the actions of a creature that had done this many times before. Captain, Dr. Webb said quietly, I'm reading the ship's biological signatures more clearly now. This creature is ancient, possibly centuries old. And it's not alone. There are smaller organisms within its body cavity, possibly offspring or symbiotic partners. This isn't just a predator, it's an entire ecosystem. The first cutting tentacle touched Meridian, 7's hull with a sound like fingernails on metal. Sparks flew as it began to carve through the outer plating with terrifying efficiency. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in red as systems automatically responded to the hull breach. Hull integrity compromised in Section 7, Torres reported, her voice steady despite the circumstances. Emergency bulkheads are holding, but it's cutting through our defenses like they're made of paper. Sarah found herself thinking about Earth. About the blue skies and green forests she might never see again, about her sister's wedding next month, about the promotion she'd been promised if this mission went well, about all the small human dreams that seemed so important just moments ago and now felt as distant as the stars themselves. The alien creature's second tentacle found purchase on the station's communication array, slicing through the delicate equipment with surgical precision. Meridian 7 was being methodically dissected, its technological organs harvested with the efficiency of a skilled butcher. "This is how it works," Webb said, his scientist's mind still functioning even in the face of death. "It disables communications first, then life support, then it opens the hull and feeds on the crew. Probably does this to ships all across the galaxy. No survivors, no distress calls, just empty hulks drifting in space." A third tentacle struck the station's power core housing, and the lights flickered as backup systems engaged. Soon they would be in darkness, helpless prey waiting for the final strike. The alien ship had begun to emit a low-frequency vibration that resonated through the station's hull, possibly a feeding sound or a call to its offspring. Sarah stood up from her captain's chair, a strange calm settling over her. "Dr. Webb, how intelligent would you estimate this creature to be?" "Highly intelligent, Captain. Problem-solving ability, tactical thinking, possibly even emotional complexity." "Why?" "Because intelligent creatures can be reasoned with. Or at least they can be surprised." Sarah walked toward the emergency equipment locker, her movements steady despite the chaos around her. "And I have a theory about apex predators." "Captain, what are you doing?" Torres called out as Sarah began pulling on an emergency spacesuit. "Something stupid, probably." Sarah sealed her helmet and checked the suit's systems. "But every predator has one weakness. They're used to their prey running away. They're not used to their prey fighting back." The alien ship's cutting tentacles had nearly breached the station's inner hull. Through the gouged metal, they could see the creature's bioluminescent hide pulsing with alien patterns. It was beautiful in its terrible way, a perfect fusion of biology and technology that represented millions of years of evolution toward the singular purpose of killing and consuming other life forms. Sarah opened the emergency airlock and stepped out onto the station's hull, her magnetic boots clamping to the metal surface with reassuring clicks. The alien creature was so close she could have reached out and touched its living hull. This near, she could see that its scales were actually sensory organs, each one twitching and adjusting to track electromagnetic signatures and heat patterns. The creature seemed to notice her presence, several of its tentacles turning toward her with predatory interest. They moved with liquid grace, positioning themselves to strike at this new morsel that had conveniently presented itself outside the protective hull. Sarah didn't run. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she did something that no prey species in the creature's long experience had ever done. She stepped forward directly into the path of the creature's primary cutting tentacle, and when it struck at her with killing force, she caught it. The impact should have shattered her arms and sent her spinning into space. But humans, as the galaxy was about to learn, were built differently than other species. Millions of years of evolution on a world where everything tried to kill them had produced a species with reflexes faster than their intelligence, with instincts that kicked in when rational thought. Sarah's gloved hands closed around the alien tentacle, her enhanced suit servos providing the extra strength needed to actually halt its strike. The creature's bioluminescent patterns shifted to what might have been surprise or confusion. In its long existence, prey didn't grab back. "Torres," Sarah's voice came over the comm system with preternatural calm, "I need you to open a communication channel on all frequencies. I want this thing to hear what I'm about to say." The alien creature tried to pull its tentacle free, but Sarah held on with the grip of someone who had grown up in Earth's crushing gravity, who had evolved from persistence hunters who could chase prey across continents. Her boots remained locked to the station's hull as the creature's struggles grew more violent. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human research vessel Meridian. -7. She broadcast on all frequencies, her words carried by radio waves to anyone or anything listening in the surrounding space. To any other members of your species who might be monitoring this encounter, I want you to understand something very important about humans. The creature's other tentacles turned toward her, sensing threat in a way that its predatory instincts had never had to process before. This wasn't prey behavior. This was something new and dangerous. We are not like the other species you've encountered," Sarah continued, her voice steady as she maintained her grip on the thrashing tentacle. "We don't run from predators. We don't hide from hunters. We are the species that looked at the apex predators of our own world and decided to make them extinct or domestic pets. With her free hand, Sarah reached for the emergency cutting torch clipped to her belt. The alien creature's patterns shifted to what could only be interpreted as alarm as it recognized the threat. For the first time in its long existence, it was looking at a creature that might actually be more dangerous than itself. We are persistence hunters, pack hunters, tool users, and problem solvers. We are the species that climbed to the top of the food chain on one of the most hostile worlds in the galaxy. And we did it by being too stubborn to know when we were beaten. Sarah ignited the cutting torch, its blue flames stark against the darkness of space. So if you want to hunt humans, you'd better bring more than tentacles and attitude. The alien creature's bioluminescent patterns had shifted to rapid, almost frantic pulses. Its neural activity readings, still being monitored by Dr. Webb back on the station, showed patterns consistent with fear, confusion, and a rapid recalculation of threat assessment. Sarah looked into what she assumed were the creature's sensory organs, her helmet lights reflecting off surfaces that had never known fear before this moment. Now you have a choice. You can let go of my station and leave, or you can find out why humans are the only species in the galaxy that evolved specifically to hunt apex predators. The creature's grip on Meridian 7 loosened slightly, its attention now fully focused on the small figure holding its primary weapon with impossible confidence. Its neural patterns showed signs of genuine cognitive processing, weighing options and outcomes with the intelligence Dr. Webb had detected. Sarah raised the cutting torch toward the creature's tentacle. I'm going to count to 3. 1. The alien ship's bioluminescent patterns suddenly shifted to a completely different configuration. Rapid pulses that seemed almost like a language. Dr. Webb's voice crackled over the comm system with barely contained excitement. Captain, those patterns, they're structured like a communication attempt. I think it's trying to talk to you. 2. The creature's tentacles pulled back from the station's hull, releasing their grip entirely. Its posture, if such a thing could be attributed to a space-dwelling organism, seemed to shift from aggressive to defensive. The rapid light patterns continued, growing more complex and sophisticated. Sarah didn't lower the cutting torch, but she paused her countdown. Dr. Webb, can you make any sense of what it's trying to say? The patterns are mathematical, Captain. Prime number sequences, geometric progressions, even what appears to be a periodic table representation. It's demonstrating intelligence, trying to establish communication protocols. The alien creature slowly retracted its cutting tentacles, folding them back into hidden recesses in its hull. Its bioluminescent display continued, now showing what appeared to be stellar cartography data, possibly indicating its origin point or territorial boundaries. Sarah found herself in the surreal position of conducting a first contact situation while standing on the hull of a space station, holding on to an alien predator's weapon while wearing a spacesuit. It wasn't how any of the textbooks said these things were supposed to go. Torres, are you recording all of this? She asked. Every second, Captain. This is going to rewrite everything we know about interspecies contact protocols. The alien creature had begun moving away from Meridian. 7, but slowly. Its bioluminescent patterns had shifted again, now displaying what appeared to be a representation of the station, then a representation of itself, then what could only be interpreted as a peaceful departure gesture. But as it moved away, the creature did something that sent chills down Sarah's spine and would haunt her for the rest of her days. It turned back toward her, and in its alien light patterns, she saw something that looked almost like respect. Dr. Webb's voice was hushed with awe. Captain, I'm reading massive changes in its neural patterns. This creature has never encountered anything like this before. You fundamentally altered its understanding of predator-prey relationships. Sarah finally released her grip on the creature's now retracted tentacle and began making her way back to the airlock. Torres, send a full report to command. Code it as a successful first contact with potential ramifications for all future deep space exploration. And Dr. Webb? Yes, Captain? Start working on a comprehensive analysis of that creature's biology. Something tells me we're going to be seeing more of its kind, and next time they're going to be a lot more careful about who they decide to hunt. As Meridian, Seven's crew worked to repair the damage to their station, the alien creature disappeared into the vast darkness between stars, carrying with it a message that would spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. Humans were not prey. They were predators who hunted predators, and they were not afraid to prove it. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had begun not with diplomatic missions or trade agreements, but with a simple demonstration that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or numbers, but the absolute refusal to accept that anything in the universe was too dangerous to face down. And in the depths of space, other creatures like the one that had just fled began to receive a message transmitted in bioluminescent patterns across vast distances. There is a new apex predator in the galaxy, and it doesn't know how to back down. 7. The Galactic Council's emergency session was called to order in the crystalline chambers of Nexus Prime. Representatives from 47 different species had gathered, their various forms of communication filling the air with a symphony of clicks, chirps, electromagnetic pulses, and pheromone releases that the universal translators worked overtime to process. Ambassador Thekmor of the Altarian Collective adjusted his breathing apparatus and activated his translation matrix. As one of the oldest spacefaring species in the galaxy, the Altarians had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. They had developed a reputation for calm wisdom and careful deliberation, traits that had kept them alive for over 12 million years of galactic history. Fellow representatives, Thekmor's translated voice resonated through the chamber, we are here to address a matter of unprecedented importance. 3 weeks ago, a deep space research station operated by the species known as humans made contact with a Vraktar shadow hunter. A collective wave of alarm swept through the chamber. Several representatives immediately began checking their personal shields, while others started calculating the distance between Nexus Prime and human space. The Vraktar were a legend whispered in the dark corners of the galaxy, apex predators so dangerous that entire civilizations paid tribute to keep them away from their systems. Counselor Zack of the Hive Worlds clicked her mandibles nervously. Ambassador Thekmor, surely you don't mean they encountered a living shadow hunter. The protocols are clear. Any vessel detecting Vraktar presence is to immediately retreat and report the sighting to the Galactic Council. Direct contact is forbidden under the survival accords of... The human vessel did not retreat, Thekmor interrupted, his calm voice carrying across the chamber like a death knell. The human captain, one Sarah Chen, engaged the shadow hunter in what can only be described as combat. The chamber fell silent except for the ambient hum of life support systems and the nervous chittering of several insectoid species. Combat with a Vraktar shadow hunter wasn't just suicide. It was a concept so alien that most species didn't have words for it. Representative Qualton of the ethereal hegemony manifested in the center of the chamber, is energy-based form flickering with agitation. The humans are a newly contacted species. Perhaps they simply didn't understand the danger. Their ignorance, while tragic, doesn't warrant a council session. The humans survived, Thekmor said quietly. The silence that followed was so complete that the chamber's atmospheric processors could be heard cycling air. Qualthon's energy form destabilized momentarily before reforming with visible effort. That's not possible, whispered Dr. Kellix of the Scientific Consortium, her synthetic vocal cords struggling to process the information. Shadowhunters have been the apex predators of known space for over 3 million years. They've eliminated 17 spacefaring species entirely. The Jorth Empire fell to a single shadow hunter that consumed their entire fleet. We have the recordings, Thekmor interrupted, activating the chamber's holographic display system. The human research station's sensors captured the entire encounter. The hologram showed the graceful, deadly form of the Vraktar shadow hunter as it approached Meridian WWWWW. 7. Even in recorded form, its presence sent waves of instinctual terror through the assembled representatives. This was a creature that existed at the apex of the galactic food chain, a perfect fusion of biology and predatory instinct that had evolved specifically to hunt and consume spacefaring species. The recording showed the Shadowhunter's initial attack, its cutting tentacles breaching the station's hull with surgical precision. Several representatives had to look away as the creature began its methodical dissection of what they assumed was about to become another victim. Then the recording showed something that violated every understanding of predator-prey relationships in the known galaxy. A single human, barely 2 meters tall and massing perhaps 80 kilograms, stepped out onto the station's hull and directly confronted the massive alien predator. "This is impossible," breathed Counselor Vex High of the warrior caste. As a species that had built their entire culture around martial prowess, the Vexi understood combat better than most. The size differential alone should make this encounter impossible. That human is smaller than most of the Shadowhunter's individual tentacles. The hologram showed Captain Chen's impossible feat of catching the Shadowhunter's primary weapon mid-strike. The alien creature's bioluminescent patterns shifted through configurations that xenobiologists had never seen before, patterns that could only be interpreted as confusion and alarm. Kelix's sensors were working overtime analyzing the recorded data. The Shadowhunter's neural activity patterns showed genuine surprise. In 3 million years of recorded history, we've never seen a Vrakdar display anything resembling confusion or uncertainty. They're perfect predators. Their behavior patterns are completely predictable. Until now, Thakmor observed. The human's words are particularly interesting. The chamber listened to Captain Chen's broadcast, her calm voice carrying across space with words that would be analyzed by xenolinguists for decades to come. Her description of humanity as persistence hunters, as a species that had climbed to the top of their world's food chain by being too stubborn to know when they were beaten, resonated through the chamber with implications that sent chills through representatives of 47 different species. The recording reached its climax as the Shadowhunter, faced with a creature that refused to behave like prey, began attempting to communicate. Its bioluminescent patterns shifted to mathematical sequences, a desperate attempt to establish contact with something it couldn't categorize in its predatory worldview. The Shadowhunter retreated, Qualthon said, his energy form flickering with disbelief. It actually retreated from a single human, but that's not the most disturbing part, Thakmor continued. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected unprecedented Vraktar activity across 7 sectors. They're communicating with each other, sharing information about this encounter. The bioluminescent patterns recorded from this incident have been observed in Vraktar communications as far away as the galactic rim. Counselor Zack's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation among her species. What are the implications? Are they planning a coordinated assault on human space? Dr. Kelix consulted her data banks, her artificial intelligence processing information at superhuman speeds. Based on historical patterns, Vraktar response to new prey species follows predictable stages: initial contact, assessment of threat level, then systematic elimination if the species proves dangerous, or simply consumption if it doesn't. But this... She paused, her optical sensors flickering. This doesn't fit any known pattern. Representative M. Doc of the Trade Federation, a pragmatic species known for their ability to find profit in any situation, activated his communication matrix. What do we know about human military capabilities? If they can face down a Shadowhunter, what kind of threat do they pose to established galactic order? The Khmor consulted his datapad, his expression grave behind his breathing apparatus. Human military technology is roughly equivalent to other species at their development level. They have basic energy weapons, primitive shielding, fusion-powered spacecraft, nothing that would explain their ability to intimidate a Vraktar. Then how? Demanded Vex High. How does a species with primitive technology and no knowledge of galactic politics face down the most feared predator in known space? The answer came from an unexpected source. Yelanera of the Biological Research Institute, who had been quietly analyzing the human physiological data, suddenly activated her communication array with urgent clicking sounds. "I've been studying the human biological specifications," she announced, her translator converting her rapid clicks into galactic standard. Their homeworld, Earth, is classified as a Class 4 death world. Gravity 1.3 times galactic standard oxygen levels that would be toxic to most species, and a biological history characterized by constant violent competition for resources. A murmur of unease swept through the chamber. Death worlds were rare, and most species that evolved on them never developed spaceflight because they destroyed themselves before reaching technological maturity. But that's not the significant part, Yilnara continued. Humans are the first species we've encountered that evolved as persistence hunters. Most spacefaring species evolved from prey animals or pack hunters. But humans? They evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion, then kill it while it was helpless. The implications hit the chamber like a physical force. Species that had evolved from prey animals instinctively understood the concept of flight when faced with superior predators. Pack hunters understood the importance of overwhelming force and tactical advantage, but a species that had evolved to simply outlast their prey, to never give up, to chase their targets across impossible distances until victory became inevitable, they don't know how to quit, Qualthon said, his energy form pulsing with realization. The concept of facing superior force and retreating isn't part of their evolutionary programming. Worse, added Yilnara, their stress response systems are completely backward from a galactic perspective. When faced with danger, most species experience fight-or-flight responses that prioritize escape. Human stress responses actually improve their physical performance under pressure. They become stronger, faster, and more focused when threatened. Counselor Vexi, despite his warrior culture's respect for combat prowess, felt a chill of recognition. They're berserkers. An entire species of berserkers. Thakmor nodded gravely. The Shadow Hunter retreated because it encountered something completely outside its evolutionary experience, a prey species that fought back, a victim that refused to be victimized, a creature that looked death in the face and asked if that was the best it could do. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For millions of years, the galaxy had operated under a natural order. Predators hunted prey, the strong dominated the weak, and survival went to those who understood their place in the cosmic food chain. Humanity represented something new and terrifying, a species that refused to accept their designated role as prey. "What are our options?" asked Representative Court of the Defensive Alliance, his usually steady voice wavering with uncertainty. Dr. Collex processed the question with mechanical precision. Based on historical precedent with aggressive species, we have three traditional responses: containment, integration, or elimination. However, each presents unique challenges with regard to humanity. Containment seems most logical, Zach suggested. Establish a quarantine zone around human space. Prevent them from expanding beyond their current systems. That assumes they'll respect quarantine boundaries, Vexi pointed out. A species that faces down shadow hunters might not be deterred by political barriers. Bring them into the galactic community, teach them proper protocols, help them understand their place in the established order. Qualton's energy form flickered with dark amusement. You mean teach a species of persistence hunters to behave like prey? That seems unlikely to succeed. Which leaves elimination, Thekmor said quietly. A preemptive strike to remove the threat before it spreads. The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of potential genocide. The Galactic Council had authorized the elimination of dangerous species before, but never one that had already proven capable of facing down the galaxy's apex predators. There's a fourth option, Dr. Yilnara said hesitantly. One that doesn't appear in our traditional response protocols. Which is? We learn to coexist with an apex predator species, she said. We acknowledge that the galactic hierarchy has shifted and we adapt accordingly. The idea was so alien that several representatives needed their translators to repeat it multiple times. The concept of sharing the galaxy with a species that refused to be prey, that turned predator-prey relationships on their head through sheer stubborn determination, challenged every assumption about how the cosmos was supposed to work. The Shadow Hunters' retreat may have been an isolated incident, Court suggested hopefully. Perhaps this human Chen was an aberration. Their species might normally respond to threats in more conventional ways. Thickmore activated another holographic display, this one showing intelligence reports from across human space. Our deep space monitoring networks have detected increased human exploration activities. Rather than pulling back to defensive positions after the Shadowhunter encounter, they've accelerated their expansion into previously unexplored systems. They're hunting, Vexihei realized, with a mixture of respect and terror. The encounter didn't frighten them into hiding. It excited them. They want to find more dangerous things to fight. Kalex's optical sensors strobed with rapid calculations. If this behavioral pattern holds, human expansion will bring them into contact with other apex predator species, the void wraiths of the Dark Nebula, the crystal devourers of the Shattered Worlds, possibly even the legendary starkillers of the galactic core. And they'll fight them all, Qualthan said with growing certainty. They'll fight them and probably win, because they're too stubborn to understand that they're supposed to lose. The chamber erupted in chaos as representatives from dozens of species began talking simultaneously, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of sound, light, and chemical signals. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just another spacefaring species joining the galactic community. They were a force of nature that threatened to overturn millions of years of established order. Thickmore called for order, his authority as session chair finally cutting through the chaos. We need a decision. The humans cannot be ignored. Their actions will have consequences that ripple throughout the galaxy. I move for immediate containment protocols, Zach declared. Establish a quarantine zone, restrict human access to hyperspace routes, limit their expansion before they encounter more dangerous species. For the safety of the galactic community. But Vexihei stood, his warrior's instincts recognizing something his survival-oriented colleagues missed. I oppose containment. If humans are truly what they appear to be, containment will only make them more dangerous. You don't cage an apex predator, you find ways to work with it. Are you suggesting we ally with them? Modok asked incredulously. I'm suggesting we recognize reality, Vexihei replied. The Shadowhunter that retreated from Captain Chen is now spreading the story throughout Vraktar space. Other apex predators are going to take notice. The galaxy's power structure is about to change whether we want it to or not. We can be part of that change, or we can be victims of it. Dr. Yilnara's biological sensors had been analyzing stress pheromones in the chamber atmosphere, and what she found was troubling. Colleagues, we need to consider something. We're all afraid. Every species in this chamber evolved from prey animals or subordinate predators. We've been conditioned by millions of years of evolution to fear apex predators. But humans? Humans evolved to be apex predators. They're not afraid of the things that terrify us because they're the things that terrify others. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than anyone expected. 24 species voted for containment, 20 for integration, and 3 abstained. The decision to establish quarantine protocols around human space passed by the narrowest of margins, but even as the representatives filed out of the chamber, many wondered if they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Meanwhile, in human space, Captain Sarah Chen was reviewing reports from other exploration vessels. The encounter with the Shadowhunter had been classified as a first contact success, and Meridian, Seven's crew had been commended for their handling of the situation. More importantly, deep space sensors were detecting increased alien activity throughout the sector. Torres, Sarah said, settling into her captain's chair, set course for the outer rim. I want to see what else is out there that thinks it's tougher than we are. Yes, Captain? Torres replied with a grin that would have terrified the Galactic Council if they could have seen it. Any particular direction? Wherever the monsters are, Sarah said simply. We've got a reputation to maintain. As Meridian changed course toward the unknown dangers of the Outer Rim, its crew completely unaware that they had been classified as a galactic threat. The first phase of humanity's transformation from explorers to apex predators was already beginning. The galaxy's most dangerous creatures were about to learn that there was something worse than being hunted. There was being hunted by humans. The mining vessel Perseverance was 3 days out from the asteroid fields of Kepler 442 when senior mining engineer Jake Morrison first noticed the anomalous readings on his geological scanners. At 45, Jake had spent most of his adult life in space extracting precious metals from dead rocks in forgotten corners of the galaxy. He knew the difference between a normal asteroid composition and something that didn't belong. "Captain Okafor," he called across the cramped bridge of the mining vessel. "I'm reading some unusual mineral signatures in Asteroid Cluster 7. Might be worth a closer look." Captain Amara Okafor looked up from her navigation charts, her dark eyes reflecting the same practical intelligence that had kept her crew alive through 15 years of deep space mining operations. The Perseverance wasn't a glamorous assignment, but it was honest work that took them to places where few humans had ever ventured. Define unusual, Jake? Well, for starters, the density readings are all wrong. This asteroid should be mostly iron and nickel, maybe some rare earth elements. But I'm getting readings that suggest organic compounds, possibly even biomechanical structures. Okafor frowned. Since the incident at Meridian, 3 months ago, there had been increased interest in unusual alien encounters. The official reports had been classified, but rumors spread through the human fleet faster than hyperspace communications. Something about Captain Chen facing down a legendary space predator had captured the imagination of every human in deep space. "Could be alien technology," suggested pilot Maria Santos from her position at the helm. At 28, she was the youngest member of the crew, but her instincts for flying through asteroid fields were unmatched. "Maybe we should report it to command and let the research teams handle it." "Or," said Chief Security Officer David Chang with a grin that had gotten him in trouble more times than he could count, "we could take a look ourselves. When's the last time mining crew got first crack at alien tech?" Okafor considered the options. Protocol said to report unusual findings and wait for instructions. But Protocol had also said to retreat from dangerous aliens, and Captain Chen had proven that sometimes Protocol needed to be revised by people with the courage to face the unknown. "Jake, how big is this asteroid?" "About 2 kilometers long, half a kilometer wide." "But Captain, the energy readings are off the charts. Whatever's in there, it's not dormant." "Life signs?" "That's where it gets interesting. I'm reading multiple organic signatures, but they're massive, like bigger than most space whales. And they're showing neural activity patterns that suggest intelligence." Santos leaned forward in her pilot seat. "So we've got a giant space rock with intelligent aliens living inside it, and we're seriously considering going to say hello?" "When you put it like that, it sounds crazy," Chang admitted. "But think about it. Captain Chen faced down a shadow hunter and came out on top. Maybe it's time we stopped acting like we're the small fish in this cosmic pond." Okafor made her decision with the kind of quick thinking that had kept her alive in asteroid fields where a moment's hesitation could mean death. "All right, people, we're going in for a closer look. But we do this smart. Santos, bring us in slowly. Chang, I want all our sensors focused on that asteroid. Jake, keep monitoring those readings and let me know immediately if anything changes." The Perseverance moved through the asteroid field with practiced ease, its hull scarred from countless encounters with space debris but still solid after 20 years of service. As they approached Asteroid Cluster 7, the ship's sensors began picking up increasingly strange readings. "Captain," Jake's voice was tight with excitement and fear, "I'm reading massive biological structures embedded in the asteroid's core. It's not just hollow, it's been converted into some kind of living habitat. And the inhabitants are aware of our presence. Through the viewports, they could see that what they had taken for a normal asteroid was actually something far more disturbing." The rocky exterior was shot through with veins of bioluminescent material that pulsed with organic rhythms. As they watched, sections of the asteroid's surface shifted and moved, revealing the unmistakable signs of a living creature of enormous proportions. "That's not an asteroid," Santos breathed. "That's an egg." The implications hit them all at once. They weren't looking at aliens who had made their home inside an asteroid. They were looking at something that had disguised itself as an asteroid while it gestated in the cold vacuum of space. Something massive, intelligent, and probably very dangerous. "Should we retreat, Captain?" Chang asked, though his tone suggested he hoped the answer would be no. Okafor found herself thinking about Captain Chen's words, broadcast across the galaxy and now part of human folklore. We are the species that looked at the apex predators of our own world and decided to make them extinct or domestic pets. The humans of Earth had faced down saber-toothed tigers, cave bears, and dire wolves. They had survived ice ages and volcanic winters. They had climbed to the top of the food chain on one of the most hostile worlds in the galaxy. "No," she said firmly. "We're not retreating. Whatever's in there has been pretending to be a rock in our asteroid field. I want to know why, and I want to know what it's planning." The asteroid creature's surface began to shift more dramatically as the Perseverance approached. Sections of rocky camouflage fell away to reveal a serpentine form of incredible size, its body easily 5 times the length of their mining vessel. Its hide was covered in scales that shifted color and pattern like a chameleon's, each scale equipped with what appeared to be sensory organs of alien design. "Jake, any ideas what we're looking at?" Morrison consulted his databases, his fingers flying over his instruments as he tried to match the creature to known species classifications. "Nothing in our files, Captain, but based on its camouflage capabilities and the way it's been disguised in our asteroid field, I'd say we're looking at an ambush predator. Probably waits for mining ships or research vessels to get close, then strikes." "How many ships do you think it's taken?" Santos asked quietly. "Based on the metabolic readings I'm getting, probably dozens over the years. This thing has been feeding on human vessels, and we never even knew it was here." Chang checked his weapon systems, though he knew the Perseverance's mining charges would be little more than an annoyance to something that size. "So, what's the plan, Captain? Do we try to communicate with it, or do we show it why hunting humans is a bad idea?" The creature's massive head turned toward their ship, revealing eyes that seemed to hold an ancient intelligence. Its mouth opened to display rows of teeth designed for crushing metal and ceramic hull plating. This was clearly a creature that had evolved specifically to prey on spacefaring species, a cosmic trap waiting in the darkness between worlds. "It's trying to intimidate us," Okafor realized. Classic predator behavior. Make yourself look bigger, show your weapons, hope the prey runs away. "Is it working?" Santos asked with nervous laughter. "Not even a little bit," Okafor replied. "Chang, I want you to target our mining charges at the creature's sensory organs. Don't fire yet, just lock on. Jake, see if you can find any structural weaknesses in its biology. Santos, be ready to maneuver if this thing decides to charge us." The creature's bioluminescent pattern shifted to rapid, aggressive displays as it sensed the targeting systems focusing on it. Its massive coils began to unwind from their disguised position, revealing the full scope of its enormous body. This was a creature that could have swallowed their mining vessel whole without difficulty. But instead of retreating or trying to escape, the Perseverance held its position with the stubborn determination that was becoming humanity's signature trait in the galaxy. 4 humans in a small mining vessel facing down a cosmic predator that had been hunting their species for who knows how long and refusing to be intimidated. "Captain," Jake's voice carried a note of discovery. "I'm reading some interesting structural data. This creature's biology is optimized for ambush attacks and crushing prey, but its defensive capabilities are limited. All that mass makes it slow to maneuver, and its sensory organs are exposed. Vulnerable spots? Multiple. The neural cluster behind its primary eyes, the respiratory vents along its flanks, and what appears to be a digestive chamber about midway down its body. Hit any of those and we could cause serious damage. The creature's aggressive displays intensified as it prepared to strike. Its mouth opened wide enough to engulf the Perseverance, and bioluminescent patterns along its body indicated that it was charging some kind of energy weapon system. This was the moment when prey was supposed to panic, to flee, to provide the chase that would end in inevitable consumption. Instead, Captain Okafor opened a communication channel on all frequencies and spoke with the calm authority of someone who had spent her life making impossible decisions in hostile environments. This is Captain Okafor of the human mining vessel Perseverance. You've been hunting my species in this asteroid field, feeding on human crews who came here to work honest jobs and provide for their families. That stops today. The creature's bioluminescent patterns shifted to what might have been confusion. In its long existence, prey had never addressed it directly, never acknowledged its presence with anything other than terror and futile attempts at escape. You want to know something about humans? Okafor continued, her voice carrying the weight of species that had crawled up from the primordial mud of Earth and decided to challenge the cosmos itself. We don't just get angry when something hunts us, we get creative. Chang's targeting systems locked on to the creature's primary sensory organs. Captain, I've got firing solutions on all major vulnerable points. We don't have the weapons to kill something that size in a straight fight, Okafor acknowledged. But we don't fight straight fights. Jake, what's the mineral composition of the surrounding asteroids? High concentrations of volatile compounds, Captain. Iron oxide, methane ice, and several unstable isotopes. With the right kind of chain reaction, you want to blow up the entire asteroid field? Santos asked with the kind of professional interest that marked her as truly human. I want to make this creature understand that humans don't just defend themselves, Okafor replied. We eliminate threats permanently. The creature lunged forward with surprising speed for something so massive, its jaws opening to engulf the Perseverance in a single bite. But Santos was already moving, her pilot instincts sending the mining vessel into a spiraling dive that took them under the creature's attack and positioned them perfectly for what came next. Now Chang. The mining charges struck the creature's sensory organs in perfectly coordinated sequence, each explosion designed not to kill but to blind and confuse. The creature's roar of pain and rage resonated through the vacuum, transmitted by electromagnetic waves that rattled the Perseverance hull. But the real attack came from Jake's mining systems. Instead of targeting the creature directly, he began systematically detonating the volatile asteroids surrounding their position. Each explosion triggered a chain reaction that spread through the asteroid field like cosmic dominoes falling in sequence. The creature found itself trapped in the center of an expanding sphere of destruction as asteroids exploded around it in carefully calculated patterns. Its rocky camouflage, which had served it so well for so many years, now became a liability as debris from the exploding field tore through its hide. Santos, get us out of here, Okafor ordered as the chain reactions reached critical mass. The Perseverance fled the asteroid field at maximum acceleration, its crew watching through rear sensors as the cosmic ambush predator thrashed helplessly in the center of a man-made disaster. The creature's bioluminescent patterns had shifted to rapid panic displays as it tried to escape the expanding ring of explosions. Jake, what are the odds it survives that? Morrison consulted his instruments, calculating blast radii and structural damage estimates. Honestly, Captain, it might live. That thing is tough, and it's survived in space for who knows how long. But it's going to be hurt, and more importantly, it's going to remember this. Good, Okafor said with satisfaction. I want it to remember, and I want every other cosmic predator in this sector to know what happens when you hunt humans. The explosion of Asteroid Cluster 7 was visible from 3 light-years away, a brief new star that flared to life in the darkness and then faded, leaving behind only expanding debris and the unmistakable message that humanity was no longer prey to be hunted with impunity. Chang was already composing his report for command. How exactly do I explain that we turned an entire asteroid field into a weapon? You tell them the truth, Okafor replied. You tell them we found something that had been hunting human ships and we made sure it won't be hunting anyone ever again. And you tell them that if there are more things like this out there, they'd better hope they find us before we find them. The news of the Perseverance incident, as it came to be known, spread through human space with the speed of hyperspace communications. Another crew, another impossible encounter with cosmic predators, another victory that should have been impossible but somehow wasn't. Humanity was developing a reputation, and that reputation was spreading beyond the borders of human space. In the depths of the galaxy, creatures that had hunted with impunity for millions of years began receiving warnings transmitted in every conceivable form of interstellar communication. The prey had learned to hunt back, and they were very, very good at it. Elena Vasquez of the Xenobiology Institute was reviewing the reports from both Meridian 7 and the Perseverance when she made a connection that would change humanity's understanding of their place in the galaxy. The pattern was unmistakable. Ambush predators, creatures that had evolved to hunt spacefaring species, were specifically targeting human vessels with increasing frequency. They're testing us, she realized, speaking to her empty laboratory as the implications crystallized in her mind. Every apex predator in the galaxy is sending scouts to test human responses. They want to know if Captain Chen was a fluke or if all humans fight like that. She activated her communication array and sent an urgent message to command. Recommend immediate alert to all human vessels. We're not just exploring the galaxy anymore. We're being evaluated as either prey or competitors by every major predator species in known space. And based on recent encounters, I believe they're concluding that we're competitors. The message reached command just as reports were coming in from a dozen other human vessels. Encounters with void wraiths in the Dark Nebula, confrontations with crystal devourers in the Shattered Worlds, even rumors of contact with the legendary Starkillers near the galactic core. Every report followed the same pattern: ambush, confrontation, and human victory through tactics that no alien predator had ever encountered before. Admiral Rebecca Torres, no relation to the lieutenant on Meridian. 7. Read the reports with growing amazement and concern. We're not exploring anymore, she said to her staff. We're hunting. Every human crew that goes out there is actively seeking these confrontations. Should we issue stand-down orders? Asked her chief of staff. Torres considered the question, then thought about Captain Chen's words about humans being too stubborn to know when they were beaten. No, she decided. We let them hunt. Because if we don't, something tells me these cosmic predators are going to decide we're prey after all. And I'd rather have them afraid of us than hungry for us. In the darkness between stars, the galaxy's apex predators were coming to the same conclusion. Humanity wasn't just another spacefaring species to be consumed or avoided. They were a new kind of predator entirely, one that didn't follow the established rules of cosmic survival. They were persistence hunters on a galactic scale, and they were rewriting the laws of who ate whom in the vast darkness of space. The age of human dominance had begun not through conquest or diplomacy, but through the simple demonstration that anything in the universe was fair game for a species too stubborn to accept that they were supposed to be afraid. And in the deepest, darkest corners of the galaxy, ancient predators that had never known fear were learning what terror felt like for the very first time. The deep space research vessel Darwin's Dream had been tracking the mysterious energy signatures for 6 days when Dr. Marcus Webb finally admitted they were following something that defied every known law of physics. As the lead xenobiologist who had survived the Meridian PEX application 7 encounter, Webb had requested assignment to the most dangerous research missions humanity could offer. What they had found in the void reaches beyond the galactic rim made every previous encounter look like a training exercise. Captain Rivera, you need to see this. Webb called from his sensor station, his voice carrying the kind of excitement that usually preceded either groundbreaking discoveries or sudden death in the deep space research business. Captain Luis Rivera, a veteran of 3 first contact situations and 2 classified apex predator encounters, made his way across the bridge of the Darwin's Dream. At 52, he had earned his reputation by taking humanity's most advanced research vessel into places where other ships simply disappeared. His crew was composed entirely of volunteers who understood that they were pushing the boundaries of human exploration into territories that might be genuinely lethal. "What are we looking at, Doc?" Webb's instruments were displaying readings that seemed to violate basic principles of conservation of energy.
Captain, I'm reading an energy signature that spans approximately 50 light years.
Not 50 light years across. 50 light years of continuous energy output, as if something is actively consuming entire star systems and converting them into pure power. Communications officer Sarah Kim looked up from her station with concern. Any chance this is natural phenomena? Maybe some kind of galactic-scale magnetic field interaction? "I wish it were that simple," Webb replied. "The energy patterns show clear signs of intelligence. Mathematical progressions, geometric patterns, even what appears to be deliberate modulation for communication purposes. Whatever's producing this energy signature is not only alive, it's trying to talk to something." Pilot Chen Nakamura, whose family had named him after the legendary Captain Sarah Chen, felt his pulse quicken with the kind of adrenaline response that had made humans the galaxy's newest apex predators.
"So we've got something bigger than a star system that wants to have a conversation."
"Please tell me we're not actually going to answer." Captain Rivera studied the sensor displays with the calm assessment of someone who had looked death in the face multiple times and walked away with scientific data. "Dr. Webb, in your professional opinion, what are the odds this is another test?" Webb had been thinking about that exact question for the past 6 days. Ever since humanity had begun its impossible string of victories over cosmic predators, the pattern had become clear. Each encounter was more dangerous than the last, as if something was gradually escalating the challenges to test the limits of human stubbornness and ingenuity. "High probability, Captain. Every apex predator species we've encountered has demonstrated remarkable intelligence and coordination. If there's something out there that can consume star systems for energy, it's likely aware of humanity's recent reputation. This could be the ultimate test." Chief Engineer Anna Petrov looked up from her damage control station, where she had been reviewing the modifications that had kept their ship operational through encounters that should have destroyed them completely.
"Captain, with respect, maybe some tests aren't meant to be taken."
"We're talking about something that eats stars. Our weapons can't even scratch the paint on a shadow hunter, and this thing makes shadow hunters look like microbes. That's exactly why we need to make contact." Rivera replied with the kind of logic that had made humans the most feared species in known space. "If something that powerful exists, we need to know about it, and more importantly, it needs to know about us." The Darwin's Dream changed course toward the source of the massive energy signature, its crew making preparations for what might be humanity's most important first contact situation. As they traveled deeper into the void reaches, their sensors began picking up the debris of civilizations that had been systematically harvested for energy. Entire solar systems reduced to expanding clouds of exotic matter, their planets consumed and their stars drained of nuclear fuel. "How long do you think it's been doing this?" Kim asked quietly as they passed through the remains of what had once been a thriving star cluster. Webb consulted his geological dating equipment. "Based on the isotope decay patterns, this destruction spans millions of years. Whatever we're approaching has been systematically consuming galactic matter on a scale that makes it less of a creature and more of a force of nature. Or a god," Nakamura added nervously. "Gods can bleed," Rivera observed with the matter-of-fact tone that had become humanity's signature response to cosmic threats. "Dr. Webb, I want full biological scans the moment we get in range. If this thing is alive, it has weaknesses. Everything in the universe has weaknesses." They found the source of the energy signature at the center of what had once been a spiral galaxy similar to the Milky Way. Now only a handful of red dwarf stars remained, orbiting something that defied every assumption about the relationship between matter and energy in the known universe. The creature, if it could still be called a creature, existed as a fusion of organic tissue and stellar engineering that spanned light years. Its body was composed of living dark matter that had somehow achieved consciousness and developed the ability to manipulate fundamental forces. Stars hung in its gravitational field like organs in a cosmic body, their nuclear fires feeding directly into a nervous system that operated on scales that made galactic civilizations look microscopic. It's not just consuming civilizations, it's incorporating them. Those energy patterns aren't just communication attempts, they're the uploaded consciousnesses of every species it's ever absorbed. Webb's xenobiology equipment was working overtime, trying to process readings that suggested this creature had achieved a form of biological transcendence that turned the distinction between living organism and cosmic phenomenon into an irrelevant detail. Captain, this is a devourer, the theoretical apex of apex predators. It doesn't just hunt prey, it absorbs entire branches of evolutionary development into itself. How many civilizations? Rivera asked quietly. Based on the consciousness patterns I'm detecting, thousands, maybe tens of thousands. This creature represents the accumulated intelligence and biological diversity of a significant portion of our local galactic cluster. Kim's communication array suddenly activated as the creature became aware of their presence. The signal that reached them wasn't transmitted through normal space, but seemed to arrive directly in their minds through some form of quantum entanglement that bypassed their ship's systems entirely. Small sparks of awareness. The voice that wasn't a voice filled their consciousness with concepts too large for human language to contain. You approach the convergence point where all knowledge becomes one. Your species shows unusual determination. This is unexpected. Rivera found himself speaking directly to a cosmic entity that could have consumed their solar system as a light snack, and he responded with the same calm professionalism he would bring to any first contact situation. This is Captain Luis Rivera representing humanity. We understand you've been testing our species through encounters with other apex predators. We're here to respond to that test directly. The creature's attention focused on their small vessel with the kind of interest that made space-time itself seem to warp around them. Testing, an inadequate concept. We have been evaluating. Your species demonstrates impossible persistence against superior force. This suggests either evolutionary error or evolutionary breakthrough. We require additional data. What kind of additional data? Webb asked, his scientist's curiosity overriding his survival instincts. Direct integration. Your consciousness patterns would provide valuable insight into the mechanism of your species' impossible victories. You would become part of the convergence, your knowledge preserved and enhanced through union with millions of other absorbed intelligences. The offer was delivered with the casual indifference of a creature that had made the same proposal to countless other species over millions of years. Integration was presented not as destruction but as evolution, the natural progression from individual consciousness to cosmic awareness. Tempting, Rivera said with the kind of dry humor that had kept his crew sane through impossible situations. But we'll have to decline. Humans prefer to remain individually stubborn rather than collectively enlightened. The creature's vast intelligence focused on them with what might have been amusement. Refusal is also data. Most species accept integration when faced with inevitable absorption. Your denial provides new variables for analysis. Nakamura was studying their sensor readings with growing alarm. Captain, it's positioning itself for consumption. Those stellar masses are being redirected to create some kind of gravitational trap. Doctor, Webb, please tell me you found something resembling a weakness in this thing. Webb had been analyzing the creature's biosignatures with increasing fascination and horror. Captain, this creature's greatest strength might also be its greatest vulnerability. It's achieved consciousness by integrating millions of different species, but that means its thought processes are incredibly complex. It has to maintain the individual identity patterns of every species it's absorbed while still functioning as a coherent entity. Are you suggesting we try to give it indigestion? I'm suggesting we might be too stubborn to digest properly. Every species this creature has absorbed accepted integration as inevitable. But what happens when it tries to absorb a species that refuses to be absorbed? The gravitational trap was tightening around the Darwin's dream, stellar masses moving with impossible precision to create an inescapable cage of warped space-time. The creature's vast consciousness pressed against their minds, offering knowledge and transcendence in exchange for the simple surrender of individual identity. Resistance is unnecessary. It communicated with the patient certainty of something that had never encountered meaningful opposition. Integration preserves consciousness while enhancing understanding. Your species' unique characteristics will be maintained within the collective. That's the problem, Rivera replied as he activated the Darwin's Dreams experimental quantum drives. We don't want our characteristics preserved. We want them dominant. What happened next violated every principle of engagement with cosmic-scale entities that had been established over millions of years of galactic history. Instead of trying to escape the gravitational trap or negotiate for mercy, the human research vessel accelerated directly toward the creature's central consciousness node with the kind of suicidal determination that had made humanity infamous among apex predators. The creature's vast intelligence recoiled in confusion as its sensors detected something impossible. The humans weren't trying to escape or surrender. They were attempting to ram a cosmic entity with a research vessel roughly the size of a dust mote in comparison to their target. This action serves no logical purpose. The creature communicated with what might have been concern. Your vessel lacks sufficient mass to cause meaningful damage to our physical structure. We're not trying to damage your body, Webb called out as the Darwin's Dream penetrated the creature's outer consciousness field. We're trying to damage your mind? The ship's experimental quantum drives had been designed to allow research vessels to exist in multiple dimensional phases simultaneously, a technology that allowed them to study cosmic phenomena from perspectives that normal space-time wouldn't permit. But when activated inside a creature whose consciousness existed partially outside normal reality, the drives created interference patterns that disrupted the delicate balance between the absorbed consciousnesses. Suddenly, the unified voice of the cosmic entity began to fragment as individual species' identities started asserting themselves independently. Millions of absorbed civilizations held in perfect harmony for eons began experiencing conflicts of purpose and method that their captor had never anticipated. "What have you done?" the creature demanded, though now its voice carried overtones of confusion and discord that suggested its perfect unity was unraveling. "We gave you humans to digest," Rivera replied, as the Darwin's Dream penetrated deeper into the creature's consciousness matrix. "And humans don't digest quietly." The effect was spreading through the creature's vast neural network as the absorbed human consciousness patterns began infecting other species with their fundamental refusal to accept subordinate status. Species that had accepted integration millions of years ago suddenly began demanding independence, their consciousness pattern shifting from peaceful cooperation to active resistance. Webb was monitoring the creature's neural activity with amazement and terror. "Captain, we're causing a consciousness cascade failure. Every absorbed species is starting to assert individual identity simultaneously. This creature can't maintain coherent thought while managing millions of separate rebellions." The cosmic entity's control over local space-time began to fluctuate as its attention was divided between maintaining its physical structure and dealing with the unprecedented revolt occurring within its consciousness. Stars began to drift out of their controlled orbits, and the gravitational trap surrounding the Darwin's Dream collapsed as the creature's concentration wavered. "This is impossible," it communicated, though its voice now carried harmonics from dozens of different species as its unified consciousness continued to fragment. "Integration prevents individual resistance. Absorbed consciousnesses cannot maintain independent identity within the collective matrix." "You never absorbed humans before," Petrov pointed out as she guided their ship through the chaotic gravitational fields created by the creature's loss of control. "We specialize in impossible." Kim was detecting massive changes in the creature's communication patterns as absorbed species began transmitting their own messages independently of their captor's control. "Captain, I'm receiving direct communications from at least 40 different species that were supposedly absorbed centuries ago. They're asking for assistance in maintaining their independence." The cosmic entity that had ruled over this region of space for millions of years found itself in the unprecedented position of fighting a war within its own consciousness against prey species that had suddenly remembered how to be predators. The humans had introduced a concept that its vast intelligence had never encountered: The idea that integration could be resisted not through strength but through pure obstinate refusal to cooperate. Your species will be responsible for chaos beyond comprehension, the creature warned as its control continued to deteriorate. The absorbed consciousnesses require integration to maintain existence within our matrix. Individual assertion will result in consciousness dissolution. Then let them dissolve as individuals rather than live as slaves. Rivera replied with the absolute certainty that had made humans the most feared species in the galaxy. That's what humans call freedom. The creature's response carried overtones of genuine bewilderment. In its millions of years of existence, it had never encountered a species that would choose dissolution over subordination. The concept was so alien to its understanding that it couldn't process how to counter it. As the Darwin's dream escaped the collapsing gravitational matrix, Webb took one last reading of the cosmic entity's biosignatures. Captain, that creature is experiencing complete systemic breakdown. It's not just losing control of the absorbed consciousnesses, it's losing the ability to maintain its own biological cohesion. We may have just killed something the size of a solar system by giving it philosophical indigestion. Rivera nodded with the satisfaction of someone who had just proven that even gods could be beaten if you were stubborn enough. Make a note in the log, Dr. Webb. Humans, 0 for diplomacy, but undefeated against cosmic entities that think they're too big to fail. As they fled the collapsing consciousness matrix of the cosmic devourer, Kim picked up transmissions from dozens of previously absorbed species as they regained their independence and began attempting to reconstruct their individual civilizations. The creature that had dominated an entire region of space through the absorption of other intelligences was dissolving into its component parts, victim of a species too stubborn to be digested properly. What do we tell Command about this? Nakamura asked as they watched stellar masses begin to reorganize themselves into natural orbital patterns as the creature's influence faded. We tell them the truth, Rivera replied. We found something that claimed to be the ultimate apex predator, and we proved it wrong. And we tell them that there's nothing in this universe too big, too powerful, or too ancient for humans to face down if we're stubborn enough about it. The report from the Darwin's dream would eventually become classified at levels that didn't officially exist, but rumors of humanity's victory over a cosmic entity spread through human space with the speed of hyperspace communications. Another impossible victory, another demonstration that there was nothing in the universe that couldn't be beaten by sufficient application of human stubbornness. And in the deepest, most ancient corners of the galaxy, entities that had existed since the first stars formed began to understand that the age of unchallenged cosmic dominance was ending. Humanity had arrived, and they were too stupid to know when they were outmatched. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of humanity's first dreadnought, the Indomitable, watching the assembled fleet that represented the culmination of 2 years of impossible victories against cosmic predators. 47 human vessels, ranging from converted mining ships to purpose-built hunter-killers, hung in formation around the massive capital ship that had been constructed with one purpose: to hunt the hunters that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. 2 years had passed since her encounter with the Vraktar Shadowhunter at Meridian. 7, and the ripple effects of that single moment of human stubbornness had transformed the entire galactic balance of power. What had begun as routine deep space exploration had evolved into systematic warfare against every apex predator species in known space, and humanity was winning through tactics that defied every established principle of cosmic survival. Admiral Captain Torres, now her chief of staff, approached with the latest intelligence reports from across human space. The Galactic Council has requested another emergency session. Apparently, our latest operations have caused what they're calling cascading ecosystem collapse across 7 sectors. Chen reviewed the reports with the calm satisfaction of someone who had spent 2 years proving that there was nothing in the universe too dangerous for humans to face down. The numbers told a story that would have been impossible to believe before humanity entered the galactic stage. The Vraktar Shadowhunter population had been reduced by 60%, The Void Wraiths had abandoned 3 entire nebula systems, and the legendary Star Killers had been observed fleeing the galactic core for the first time in recorded history. Ecosystem collapse, Chen mused. I suppose that's one way to describe what happens when the apex predators become the prey. The transformation hadn't been accomplished through superior technology or overwhelming numbers. Human ships were still primitive by galactic standards, their weapons barely capable of scratching the hull of a true cosmic predator. But humans had introduced something to galactic warfare that no species had ever encountered: the absolute refusal to accept that anything was too dangerous to hunt. Captain Rivera of the Darwin's Dream had established the template with his defeat of the Cosmic Devourer. Instead of trying to match their enemies in raw power, humans had learned to exploit the one weakness that all apex predators shared. They were unprepared to deal with prey that fought back intelligently and persistently. Every subsequent encounter had followed the same pattern: identify the predator's assumptions about prey behavior, then violate those assumptions in ways that caused catastrophic system failures. "What's the Council's position this time?" Chen asked. "Same as always. They want us to stop hunting cosmic predators and return to appropriate species behavior. Ambassador Thekmore specifically mentioned that our actions are causing dangerous instability in established galactic hierarchies." Chen turned away from the viewport, her expression carrying the kind of predatory focus that had made her the most feared human in the galaxy. The established galactic hierarchy put humans at the bottom of the food chain. I think we've demonstrated our feelings about that arrangement. The human fleet represented more than just military power. It embodied a fundamental shift in how intelligence approached the concept of cosmic survival. Every ship was crewed by volunteers who understood that they were not just exploring the galaxy, but actively reshaping it according to human values. They were the descendants of persistence hunters who had chased prey across continents, and they had brought that same relentless determination to the vastness of space. Commander Elena Vasquez materialized on the bridge via holographic communication from her position aboard the research vessel Prometheus. As humanity's leading expert on apex predator psychology, she had been instrumental in developing the tactics that had made human victories possible. "Admiral, we've completed our analysis of the galactic core situation. The Starkiller's retreat has created a power vacuum that's being filled by smaller predator species. We're seeing territorial conflicts between creatures that haven't had to compete with each other for millions of years. Casualties among civilian populations?" Chen asked with the practical concern of someone who understood that warfare always had consequences beyond the combatants. "Surprisingly low," Vasquez replied. "Most spacefaring species have adapted to the new paradigm by avoiding areas where predator conflicts are occurring. But, Admiral, there's something else. We're receiving direct communications from several apex predator species requesting negotiation. The concept of cosmic predators requesting negotiation with their prey was so alien that it took Chen a moment to process the implications. Negotiation for what? Territorial boundaries, hunting rights, even mutual defense agreements. The Void Wraiths have offered to share their dimensional travel technology in exchange for human protection against the Shadow Hunters. The Crystal Devourers want to establish formal borders around human space to prevent accidental encounters. Torres looked up from her tactical displays with amazement. They're treating us as equals. More than equals, actually. They're treating us as the dominant predator species. Chen considered the reports, her mind working through the strategic implications of humanity's transformation from prey to apex predator. 2 years ago, the concept of negotiating with cosmic entities that could consume entire star systems would have been ludicrous. Now it was becoming standard diplomatic procedure. What about the Shadow Hunters? Any communication from them? That's where things get complicated, Admiral. The Shadow Hunters aren't trying to negotiate. They're evolving. The holographic display showed recent encounters between human vessels and Vraktar Shadow Hunters. But these weren't the same creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. The new generation showed signs of rapid evolutionary adaptation specifically designed to counter human tactics. Enhanced sensory systems to detect human stealth technology, improved neuroplasticity to adapt to unexpected tactics during combat, and most concerning of all, they've begun exhibiting pack-hunting behaviors. Traditional shadow hunters were solitary predators, but we're seeing coordinated attacks by groups of 3 or 4 individuals.
Chen studied the tactical data with the professional interest of someone who had made a career out of doing impossible things.
They're learning from us. We taught them that prey could be dangerous, so they're adapting to hunt dangerous prey more effectively. It gets worse, Vasquez continued. Our xenobiologists believe the shadow hunters are undergoing accelerated evolution in direct response to human expansion. They're not just adapting their hunting techniques, they're modifying their basic biology to counter human tactics specifically. The implications were staggering. Humanity had become such a significant factor in galactic ecology that apex predator species were evolving specifically to counter human advantages. The hunters were learning to hunt the hunters, and they were doing it with the focused intensity of creatures that had never had to adapt to genuine threats before. How long before they complete their evolutionary cycle? Torres asked. Based on observed adaptation rates, probably 18 months, maybe less if they continue to encounter human resistance at current frequencies. Chen made her decision with the kind of rapid tactical thinking that had made her humanity's most successful predator hunter. Then we don't give them 18 months, Torres, signal the fleet. We're initiating Operation Final Hunt. Operation Final Hunt was humanity's most ambitious plan, the systematic elimination of every shadow hunter in the galaxy before they could complete their evolutionary adaptation to counter human tactics. It was a strategy that would have been impossible for any other species to contemplate, requiring the kind of sustained, coordinated effort across multiple star systems that only persistence hunters could maintain. Admiral, Vasquez said carefully, the ethical implications of allowing a species that exists solely to hunt and consume other intelligence to evolve specifically to hunt humans are pretty clear, Chen interrupted. We didn't start this war, but we're going to finish it. The human fleet dispersed across 17 different sectors, each task force equipped with the latest intelligence on shadow hunter biology and behavior. They weren't hunting randomly. Every strike was precisely calculated to maximize damage to the shadow hunter gene pool while minimizing the time available for evolutionary adaptation. Captain Morrison of the mining vessel Perseverance, now refitted as a hunter-killer, led the assault on the shadow hunter breeding grounds in the Outer Rim. His ships moved through the cosmic nurseries where young shadow hunters learned to hunt, turning the predator's own territory into a killing ground designed by human tactical intelligence. Commander Rivera aboard the heavily modified Darwin's Dream penetrated the dark nebula where the oldest shadow hunters gathered to share hunting knowledge across generations. His mission was to eliminate the cultural transmission of anti-human tactics, and Captain Okafor, now commanding a small fleet of converted mining vessels, struck at the shadow hunter communication networks that allowed them to coordinate their evolutionary responses. Her teams severed the bioluminescent relay systems that had allowed the species to adapt as a unified whole. The final hunt lasted 3 months and covered a significant portion of the known galaxy. When it was over, the Vraktar shadow hunters existed only in isolated populations too small to maintain genetic diversity, scattered across remote systems where they posed no threat to human expansion or galactic stability. Casualties? Chen asked as the fleet commanders reported in from across human space. Remarkably light, Torres replied. 17 ships with various degrees of damage, 43 crew members requiring medical treatment, and 2 fatalities against an entire apex predator species. The numbers spoke to something that the galaxy was still struggling to understand. Humans didn't just fight apex predators, they fought them efficiently. 2 years of experience had taught human crews exactly how to exploit the weaknesses that cosmic predators didn't know they had. turning creatures that had dominated the galaxy for millions of years into extinct footnotes in the history of human expansion. "Signal from Nexus Prime," the communications officer announced. "The Galactic Council is requesting immediate audience with human representatives." They had watched humanity systematically eliminate or subordinate every major predator species in the galaxy, and they wanted to understand what came next. The balance of power that had existed for millions of years was gone, replaced by something entirely new, a single species that had proven capable of hunting anything the universe could produce. "Tell the Council we'll attend their session," Chen decided. "But make it clear that we're coming as the dominant species in this galaxy, not as petitioners seeking approval." The Galactic Council session that followed would be remembered as the moment when the old order officially ended and the age of human dominance began. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to formally acknowledge what had become obvious to everyone except the Council itself. Humanity was no longer a member species seeking integration into galactic society. They were the apex predators that determined how galactic society would function. Ambassador Thekmore opened the session with words that carried the weight of cosmic history. "We are gathered to address the fundamental transformation of galactic power structures resulting from human expansion and their systematic elimination of apex predator species. The question before us is simple: what kind of galaxy do we want to live in?" Chen, now representing humanity as their first galactic admiral, stood before the assembled representatives with the calm confidence of someone who had personally faced down cosmic entities and won. "The answer to that question is simple. We want to live in a galaxy where intelligence determines survival, not biological accident, where cooperation is rewarded and predation is punished, where every species has the opportunity to reach their potential without fear of being consumed by something bigger and meaner. And if existing species disagree with human values," asked Counselor Vexay. "Then they're free to find another galaxy," Chen replied, with the absolute certainty that had made humanity the most feared species in known space. "This one belongs to the Persistence Hunters now." The vote to formally recognize human dominance over galactic affairs was unanimous, though several representatives later admitted they had been motivated more by fear than genuine agreement. Humanity had proven that they could eliminate any threat to their expansion, and most species preferred accommodation to extinction. As the council session ended and humanity began establishing the governmental structures that would manage their new galactic empire, Chen returned to the observation deck of the Indomitable. The stars that had once seemed vast and threatening now looked like a frontier waiting to be explored by a species too stubborn to be stopped. "Admiral," Torres joined her at the viewport. "We're receiving reports from our deep space exploration fleets. They've made contact with intelligence from the Andromeda Galaxy. Apparently, our reputation has preceded us." "Another galaxy full of apex predators?" Chen asked with the kind of professional interest that had made her legendary. "But Admiral, they sent a diplomatic message. They want to negotiate before we arrive in their space." Chen smiled with the predatory satisfaction of someone who had just realized that the hunt was far from over. Humanity had conquered one galaxy through sheer stubborn determination, but there were billions more waiting beyond the void. And somewhere in those distant star systems there were probably apex predators who thought they were too dangerous for any prey species to challenge. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Torres signaled the Andromeda delegation. "Tell them we'll be happy to negotiate. But make it clear that we're coming whether they want us to or not. We're persistence hunters, and this is what we do." As the Indomitable and her fleet prepared for humanity's next impossible journey, Chen took one last look at the galaxy that had once seemed so vast and dangerous. Now it looked like home, a place where intelligence had triumphed over brute force and where no creature was too dangerous to face down if you were stubborn enough about it. The age of cosmic predators was over. The age of humanity had begun, and somewhere in the distance between galaxies, ancient entities that had never known defeat were about to learn what it meant to be hunted by a species too stupid to know when they were outmatched. The hunt continued, and it always would, because that's what humans did. They persisted. until the impossible became inevitable. The galaxy's most lethal hunter attacked. The humans snared the weapon and didn't blink. HFY.